Greetings dear viewers, my name's Nigel Mayo and I'm from my new channel Salad Cream Boy. Now, if you want to know a bit more about what I'm doing here, I've linked my introduction video in the description below. On this channel, I'll be talking about the good, the bad and the... No, I'm not going to talk about that. Absolutely not. In this video, I'm going to be talking about, well, you guessed it, Star Trek. I'm going to be covering what made Star Trek and why it was so good back in the day. I'm also going to give you my top 5 tips on how to enjoy good Star Trek again. So, without any further ado, set course for your sofa, engage at maximum warp, and sit back and relax. Now this is a franchise, among a few others, that a lot of people hold dear to their heart. It's made us laugh, it's made us cry, but unfortunately at the moment it's just making a lot of people angry. Over the past week or so I've been diving back into Star Trek The Next Generation, arguably the best one of the lot. Okay, a lot of people will probably say the original series, but personal choice, allowed to have that. I've been trying to put my finger on what made these kind of shows so special, and it actually occurred to me the answer actually fell in Star Trek Beyond. In one of the opening scenes, Captain Kirk, during his captain's log, mentioned that everything was starting to feel a bit too routine, and the word he was using was episodic, and that's exactly what these series were, and to be honest, what they should be now. You didn't get one massive big story arc with these series. Okay, there was a couple with the exception of Voyager and DS9, where you had the Dominion War and the whole concept of trying to get home, and there were recurring enemies that you saw seasons long, like the Dominion for DS9 or the Herosian, the Kazon and various others for Voyager. But as far as one series being the equivalent of just one big episode, it actually split everything up and focused on all the characters one by one in each episode. This allowed for a lot of character development, so by the time the movies came around there wasn't any need for that. The audience knew the characters well, so if anyone died, got injured, fell in love, the emotion was there. You didn't really need to do much else. All you had to do was just tell a good story. Unfortunately these days that's something that's become a little bit of a lost art. There's just way too much focus on how much money's been put into something, what gender people are, what race people are, and what kind of message that these showrunners are trying to put across to the audience. They don't actually seem to be bothered by, I know this is a foreign concept, but entertaining your fan base. Now, I'll give you my personal opinion. I was so excited for when Star Trek Picard was announced, when Patrick Stewart says, Picard is back. Despite Star Trek Discovery, which, okay, I'm not going to have anything against you if you like that show, let's just say, putting it mildly, it's just not for me. I never really connected with the characters, just purely because there was just way too much going on in each episode. There was never any one story. In Star Trek The Next Generation, for example, you at the most got 2 stories. For example, I'll give you Deja Q, when Q was kicked out the Continuum and he lost his powers and was forced to spend his time on the Enterprise. That was one storyline. Storyline B was the Enterprise crew trying to solve the problem of a moon not colliding with a planet and creating an ice age. Okay, sometimes it can be difficult to gel 2 storylines together, but there was never really any episode that you felt that you were just trying to concentrate on everything that was going on. And most of the time, whenever there was a moral dilemma, it allowed the audience to just try and figure it out by themselves. There were a couple of occasions where it gave you the answer, and to be quite honest, it's stuff that, well, you'd be stupid, or it wouldn't really make you a very nice person if you did feel the other way. Again, I'll give you an example of this. Data's daughter. Now, obviously, When Data constructed Lal, he obviously immediately viewed her as a daughter because, well, she was an extension of him. And then when the Admiral come along and tried to take her away, it's like child services trying to take your baby away from you. Although, in this instance, neither Data nor Lal had actually done anything wrong, and it just became an argument of human rights. The beauty of that episode was Data and Lal didn't have any emotion. Okay, Lal did at the end, which was put down to some kind of cascade failure, but with the way that these stories are told, let me put it this way, I was an absolute mess at the end of the episode. And it's just stories like that you don't necessarily even need a lot of emotion in it. You just need the episode to be well written. And again, this is an art that less and less people seem to have. Anyway, my point being is, with shows like Star Trek Discovery, Star Trek Picard, and now Star Trek Lower Decks, it all just seems to come under one platform of what colour someone is, what gender they are, if you're woman good, if you're man bad, and there isn't really any kind of Star Trek that you can just fall back on to have a good time, to sit down, turn off and just enjoy it, other than go to Netflix, Amazon, the high seas, or if you happen to have DVDs and Blu-rays, you can turn back to them. But there isn't really anything new or current that's coming out that you can say, you know what, I really like that, I'm going to watch that again. Okay, so now that you've got the gist of why I made this video, without further ado, let's go through the top 5 recommendations on how to enjoy some good Star Trek. After a couple of cameos in Star Trek Enterprise, Family Guy creator Seth MacFarlane decided to go in the direction of sci-fi. Being a lifelong fan of Star Trek, this just seemed to be the next logical place for him to go. Unfortunately, negotiations with CBS didn't go as planned, to put it lightly, which resulted in him creating the Orville. Bringing some of his Family Guy style humour to the new platform, the understanding was, among a lot of fans, that the Orville was set to be a spoof about Star Trek. However, looking at what followed, we couldn't be more wrong. While retaining some of the humour from his previous shows, the Orville went on to deal with some pretty serious issues, but they never really seemed to go too far, or at least to the point that you just wanted to turn the TV off. Yeah, okay, we have 3 women in power, but they were written as well-rounded people with their own strengths and flaws. Firstly, there was First Officer Commander Kelly Grayson, who, is a strong female lead, but after cheating on a partner who is now a captain, played by Seth MacFarlane, she goes on her own redemption arc. There's Security Chief Lieutenant Alara Kitan, who, while very capable at her job and possesses superhuman strength due to her home planet having a higher gravity level than most, is still very insecure when she's given more responsibility or, say, put in command or anything like that, and she really doesn't believe in herself as much as she should. So yeah, character flaw. And then there's Dr. Claire Finn, who was also Cassidy Yates in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Again, while she's a very confident and capable clinician and officer, she does struggle very much to keep her family unit together. There's also a very unique type of romance arc in the second season, but we'll get to that in another video. We also get to see some pretty major stars and get some pretty nice cameos throughout the couple of seasons. There's a nice cameo with Liam Neeson. Charlize Theron has a major part in one episode, and trust me, if you like A Million Ways to Die in the West, you are going to absolutely lose it with this episode. Trust me, you will love it. We even get to see one of the best TV space battles, at least that I've seen since Sacrifice of Angels in DS9, and even then it wasn't overdone. It really does feel like you're watching a 90s Star Trek show again. I don't know how Seth pulled this off, but he did it. And one of the things that made Star Trek great, which is also carried on into the Orville, was the fact that the episodes were, episodic. Again, there were no more than a couple of storylines in any one show. There was lots of character development and great writing. So when there was a big event and something happened to the characters, well, let's put it this way. I went through my fair share of tissues, and I suggest that you start investing in some if you watch this. Not only can you find it on Hulu, but I'm leaving a link here for the trailer for season 1 on YouTube. Now, on to my next suggestion. Based on the 4 years war between the Federation and the Klingons and is completely crowdfunded, Axanar is an amazing Star Trek fan film project led by Alec Peters, who plays Captain Garth, who commands the USS Ares, in the first installment, which is entitled Prelude to Axanar. Honestly, when I first come across this, I really did think that this was some kind of official Star Trek that I actually missed. It really does look that good, if not better. The effects are amazing. Prelude to Axanar is a simple 20-minute story in the style of a documentary series of a real space war. There's no woke, there's no agenda or politics. Just pure, unadulterated Star Trek. There's none of this Kelvin or Discovery timeline. The ships look how they would do if they were in the original series, but just using today's technology, and to be honest, it just does what it says on the tin. After Prelude was released, the production had a spot of bother with CBS that sparked a drawn-out lawsuit. There were various things that CBS had against the Axanar team, but what seems to be the biggest issue was that a crowd-funded fan film looked better than what the official Star Trek team had produced. Simply put, CBS didn't like where this was going and didn't want the competition. And to be honest, if that's not an agenda, I don't know what is. Since the situation with CBS had been levelled out, kind of, Alec and his team set out to produce 2 more installments of Axanar, per their agreement with CBS having to abandon their dream of a feature-length motion picture. This included the design and production of their own custom bridge set. You heard me, they built their own frickin' bridge. How cool is that? Anyway, as it stands today, they actually have a trailer out for the first installment of their 2-parter called Interlude. The link is in the description. I highly recommend checking these clips out. Trust me, you're going to thank me. Moving on, in no particular order, my third suggestion on how to experience some good Star Trek. Now, this next recommendation is a bit of a weird one. As I said about Axanar being a complete game changer, this is kind of the opposite in a way. But honestly, for some reason, it actually does still work. Don't get me wrong, there are times I do find myself clock watching, but there is a certain charm about this show. The issue with prequels, whether it be series, movies, etc., is that they look nothing like the original series. While some special effects are spectacular, there's no accounting for the real McCoy. Pun intended. Star Trek Phase 2 sees the new voyages of the original crew of the Enterprise, just played by different people. The acting's a bit basic and there's clear green screen going on, but the stories are solid and the starship action gets better and better with every project. There's even a couple of cameos from Sulu and Chekhov. The real Sulu and Chekhov. It's not my personal favourite, but it's definitely worth a go. Oh, and by the way, there's a Borg ship in one of them. I've added a link to their YouTube channel in the description below, so yeah, if I were you, I really would check them out. Right then, my fourth suggestion is what I'd like to call old Trek. It might just be worth restarting old series. It might not be ideal at the moment, but it's the next best thing until something better comes along. For example, in Star Trek The Next Generation, you have episodes like Measure of a Man, Best of Both Worlds, All Good Things, and that's just to name a few. And to be honest, it's mainly just to serve as a reminder of how good the writing really was back then. I found that doing this gets you reinvested in the story. Plus, when the next big Star Trek comes out, you'd just be able to appreciate the Easter eggs, references and stuff as they are still fresh in your mind. So hopefully this would improve your experiences with future content. But if not, there's still nothing wrong with a bit of nostalgia. Okay then, so here's my last suggestion. Even though it's not Star Trek content, I found that watching things like Friday Night Tights can be more entertaining than mainstream media. It's also something that you can just leave on in the background, as a live stream can last a good number of hours. At the very least, it's good for a few yucks. And there you go, my top 5 recommendations on how to get your Star Trek on if the current content isn't for you. If you like what you heard, why not smash that like button as well as the notifications bell. I'd also like you to consider subscribing to this channel. It really does help all of your favourite YouTubers get noticed and beat the algorithm. All I gotta say now is just remember, it's not all bad, and well, you know, at the end of the day, it gets dark.